The ego is the system that runs your sense of self. It is made out of thought patterns, emotions, and behavioral loops, and the stories that try to hold it all together. Left unchecked, it creates endless existential searching, chronic disconnection, and the persistent sense that something is wrong. The goal of my videos is clarity, to see your identity and its contradictions for what they are, named precisely, to finally understand what it is that we're all running away from. Truth-seeking is an existential spiral that for a while will drive you towards madness. And you kind of have to go through this sort of phasing out from deep knowing and understanding, feeling that everything is incredibly magical and you are in direct contact with that magic, to complete disillusionment and disappointment, knowing that everything is, pretty brittle, you cannot know what is true, and you're just doomed to live bad experiences for no apparent reason. And you spiral down this, spiral until you find certain layers where a lot of stuff starts to like mash together, and then the entire spiral starts to feel like one thing, and the entire path becomes one thing. And you see, okay, wow, I can actually be holistically integrated and happy even within these different spirals, which can also be the ups and downs of life, right? Like phases of extreme happiness, phases of extreme sadness, and all that is in between. You want to understand how the spiral functions in order to not get trapped in any of these aspects, as there are different spirals that you can draw as like maps for this stuff. On this consciousness level, I have talked about the idea of spiral dynamics, which is the most cultural way of explaining these different levels of consciousness, which I dived in deeper in my All Levels of Thinking video. But this is not what this is about. This spiral is more about the existential relationship phases that you fall down to when you go into this truth-seeking way or truth-seeking path. And it's not the same for everyone, but you can see the same things playing out again and again. And the first awakening is really the start of the spiral, which you might say that the entire spiral is the process of awakening too. But to simplify, let's say that the first awakening is the start of the spiral, and it is the awareness that your own perception of reality has been extremely faulty, and you become aware for the first time of what the ego really is. And it kind of makes things surprising because it shows that what you thought was so obviously true is actually just a projection of your own mind. And usually people notice this when they become like aware of social dynamics. And if they are very perceptive, they notice how they are trying to manipulate the social dynamics. And then they notice, okay, so this act of deceiving others for my own gain, which to a certain extent everybody does, even if it's just fake kindness, then it's like, okay, wow, so I am actually not operating because I have free will or because I want, to do what is best for me, but because I have the sense of identity that is actually manipulating me into behaving in a certain way. And then from there, you fall deeper down the spiral and you start to kind of dissolve the relationship to objectivity and subjectivity, because you see that everybody is doing this. It's not just you. And to a certain extent, other people might do it even worse than you. So then, on this, philosophical way, like to explain it in this philosophical way, is just the difference between objectivity and subjectivity. Like to see things for how they are objectively independent of you, and subjective experiences gaining data to then have their localized subjective opinion. And then to notice, wow, everybody has just this like the subjective lens, and this objective like viewpoint kind of ceases to make a lot of sense. And then you deconstruct your own meaning making system because you start to doubt that any of it is actually true. And from there, you can have an experience of intense magic and beauty and relief, because all of the pain and the sort of heaviness that you were holding on to is not really necessary because it was never true to begin with. Or you're actually very scared because you found great comfort in this way of perceiving things. And suddenly your perception starts to dissolve and become so fluid like so water like, and you cannot localize yourself in your own identity anymore. Then you can fall deeper down the spiral, and then suddenly you wonder, okay, I am a human that can die, and what am I actually like beyond this physical body? Like, what happens after death? And this death awareness thing is such a huge aspect of it all, because the ego really tries to avoid its own death. And this relates a lot to, it's social death. Like, it needs to prop up the image for the social dynamic. But then beyond that, the ego, of course, also has this relationship to actual death. And the relationship of the ego to actual death is that it's never going to happen. That it's not real and it's not possible to die. That you are somehow immortal, and that whenever death happens, it's going to be this quite distant thing that is not really going to affect you. And when this breaks apart, then there can be a huge amount of death anxiety, because wait, no, I do actually die. I'm actually finite and I cannot escape this finitude. Now, it is often said that, enlightenment is dying before you die. And this is why, because you now look at reality in a way that is beyond your own lifetime. So you kind of zoom out again, like from the subjective objective dynamic, you zoom out even further and you can see, no, there's actually an objective truth here. I will die. It is not a matter of opinion at all. So now you can wonder what else is the case, and it's not matter of a subjective opinion at all. Now, you might start to wonder about reincarnation and open individualism and like near-death experiences and astral travel, and all stuff that seemed to be kind of esoteric before becomes interesting for the ego, because it kind of gives relief to know, maybe I don't actually die. Maybe there's like some life after death. Maybe there's some like mystical space beyond my personal human lifetime. And from there, you kind of fall deeper into the rabbit hole until you ground yourself again. And then there's a point in the spiral where you kind of come to terms with the fact that everything ceases to exist. Everything kind of has its time and place. And you can kind of feel comfortable in the impermanence of your own identity. And from there, it's much easier to shift around and be more calm and not have that much death anxiety, because, at the end of the day, this is quite natural, and you've come to terms with it. That, everything ceases and then everything is just a black void. Now comes the point where you again spiral around and you think to yourself, wait a minute. I am alive right now. I never chose this life. And as far as I understand, there are physical laws in this universe that cause living organisms to exist. And thinking about the nature of physics, laws of gravity, electrochemistry, electromagnetism, like everything points to the fact that I am actually not the star of the show here. And everything does kind of create stuff out of nothing. At least as far as I'm aware of, I come out of nothing in a way. Like you can say, it's my parents and like sperm and all of this magical stuff, but really, I don't know where any of this coming from if I follow the line long enough. Now, this might actually imply I am immortal. I cannot die because I am entrenched within a universe that is immortal, and I might actually be intimately interconnected with all facets of experience and all other people. Now, again, a clarification, right? The spiral is a spiral, it's not linear, and you come to the same conclusions multiple times. And that's why it's a spiral. It's not just this straight line of, okay, one realization after another, but you might find one aspect of what I've said here to be true just for a few months to doubt it again. And then a few months come again, and you then rediscover the truth. And it is always the sense of, whoa, I've already known this. And it feels like a novel revelation with the sense of certainty, where this, idea of certainty comes in, that I've talked in my last 2 videos about, because the feeling is, oh, I've always known this. I've been just in denial about it. I knew this is the case. And it's interesting, right? Because you have this in both worlds. Like you have this in this mystical frame of everything is consciousness, I'm awareness, I'm identifying with awareness. And no, I'm a biological body, I'm this physical entity. If I die, things cease to exist. And then you start to kind of want to land on one place and not the other. And then through parts of your life, it kind of pendles around, and you like circle around these truths until you find a layer in which these things start to unite. Now, if we are going to use Buddhist framings to understand this, like moving down in the cycle, then there are certain realizations that are essential for you to be able to move through the cycle without getting stuck. And in Buddhism, there are like these fetters. But instead of just using the classical Buddhist fetters, I have kind of my own way of framing these things, and I find they map up pretty like exactly or like pretty directly. But I think I change my framework depending on the right context. But the fetters are basically the things that are making you stuck within the spiral, that are putting you in the sense that you cannot advance. And the first one is usually doubt, because the realization that you've already known is now being doubted, and then you have to move through the spiral until you can rediscover the truth again. Then it is self-belief, which is kind of the other side of doubt, because you believe that you are one particular thing that can be closed off and defined, and then you cannot move further towards deeper dissolution because you already have a self-view, and the self-view can be very sneaky. It can be very meta. Like just the view that you are on a certain stage in a spiral already puts you into a bind. Then you have the rites and rituals, which is this sense that, oh, in order to become more advanced spiritually, I need to be completely abstinent of all pleasures, or I need to meditate 3 hours a day, or I need to be this person and not that person. So you believe that the ritual or the discipline in of itself is what brings you to further down your understanding of yourself. When this might help, like in certain stages this might help, but if you become attached to like rituals, then your identity is attached to the ritual, and you don't really believe that you can be whole without it. You can have a sense of lust for the immaterial, which is kind of the sense of seeking, where you want to transcend yourself and be higher than who you are. And this will kind of get you stuck in like, some parts of the fetters where you have to acknowledge your own humanity, acknowledge your own imperfections, acknowledge your own primal instincts, and stuff like this. And this sense of wanting to transcend yourself or be in contact with your higher self kind of creates a duality that just blocks out the deeper parts of the spiral. Then you have existential restlessness, where you cannot sit still. You need to do something all the time, like, oh, I need to work on my business, or I need to, uh, do this and that. And I cannot just sit and meditate or just be present, because without that, you're not going to feel into your experience, feel into the nature of your actual consciousness. And you're always activating the ego by kind of fueling its need for control and fueling its need to do something about stuff. Then an important resistance is also ill will. Like if you desire bad things for other people, and you're like jealous, and you notice your own jealousy, it is always important that if you notice that one of these aspects still lives within you, is to not reject it and to not deny it, but to actually be curious about it and investigate it further, because then you actually see yourself for who you actually are. Like if you are jealous, telling yourself that you shouldn't be jealous is not the way to get rid of the jealousy. And then you have sort of reality confusion that will just block you through these deeper spirals, because you're going to be ignorant about what is going on. And this sort of ignorance is basically just a lack of curiosity, like not wanting to know what it is that you are lacking in wisdom. And on different stages of the untethering of these fetters, you are going to dissolve your ego further and further. And by this, dissolution process, this spiral becomes kind of more coherent and more, solidified. And what this really means is that you're going to be more comfortable through the entire ordeal. You're going to be more stabilized, and you will feel that spirituality is starting to become a sense of equilibrium, where you don't fall into one extreme or another extreme, but you find peace within this spiral, and you don't separate yourself from the entire process of the spiral, which makes a ton of sense because you are your entire life. If you reject the primal aspect of you and say, no, all of this is like lower levels of consciousness and lower levels of awareness, and I don't actually want to experience all of this primal stuff, like I would never do this, then you're separating yourself from your humanity, and you're not fully embodying who you can be. And this is the case for all aspects. That's why in spiritual communities people usually reject all of this evil human stuff, and they really hope they can transcend all of the humanness out of themselves, which is of course creating a huge existential split. And the scientific minded person just really wants to feel um like he knows stuff, and he can be certain about like knowing stuff. And this will also cause a split because you are separating yourself from everything you don't know, which is very, very, very much. So there's this pendulum swing between everything is magical and everything is um, super, super profound and mystical. And then also everything is kind of empty and nothing really matters and everything is meaningless. And the spiral kind of moves you through these different state spaces. And what is very interesting about them is that you will always believe that at every stage, whatever you perceive is like just true or also the ultimate truth. And it's very important to not get attached into the sense of ultimate truth because it does feel like that. Because wow, I've seen something now that I've always known, and now I'm super certain that I've always known this. Now I know everything. And this kind of the ignorance of the ego always creeping up. Now I know everything. Now I don't need to investigate more suffering. Now I don't need to investigate more about the nature of myself. Now I don't need to see in which ways I'm lying to myself. And this happens in subtle ways because maybe you know a lot about the topic for 90%, and then the last 10% you actually are ignorant about it, and then people point out to the 10% you're ignorant about, and then immediately the ego wants to defend themselves. No. I know my stuff. Like, look at all of the stuff I know. And then you start to ignore all of the like little work that is still left to do. And the funny thing is that this little stuff that there is still to do is exponential. It's just the difference. It's the difference between having a very strong, intense psychedelic experience and going off the threshold to full ego death. It isn't just like, oh yeah, this is a bit more intense, but it's just like, oh wow, I didn't know how much I didn't know. And I do think that this is always important to keep in mind. And although I feel extremely, extremely integrated and extremely whole, and from my personal perspective, I just know the truth. But this doesn't mean that I cannot be wrong about stuff, like especially on the relative level. And it doesn't mean that I cannot deeper integrate into the spiral because, who knows everything that I don't know, right? So there's just no seeking mechanism for me anymore. Like there's no narrative about a spiritual story. There's no goal at which to come to. There's nothing really to do except to be myself and show how you can more holistically be yourself, disintegrate all of the suffering, move towards further well being, and then keep investigating how much deeper the rabbit hole goes.